When the world was celebrating the arrival of 2026, the Amsterdam's fire brigade was busy battling a major fire that was engulfing the historic Vondelkerk. For a century and a half, this neo-Gothic church had been a part of Amsterdam's cityscape and a testament to the city's reputation for preserving its 19th century heritage. But when the roof of the church crackled and fell, a different kind of fire was being lit on social media. A fire full of rage and hatred, pushed by algorithms and opportunists that became a lot more difficult to contain than the one devouring the stone and timber of Vondelkerk.
And now for context, if in the Netherlands people talk about youth gangs, that is 99.9% sure a youth gang with Moroccan members. It's an act of war, reminiscent of what happened to the Notre Dame and to all these other churches that we've seen burned down all around Europe. It's symbolic for the state of our continent. And now my New Year's resolution is that I hope that our people will wake up to this very one-sided civil war that is being played out, and that we will start doing something about it.
The Vondelkerk was a 19th century landmark designed by architect Pierre Cuypers that was commissioned in 1872 and completed in 1880. This historic building was deconsecrated in 1979 and had since functioned as a commercial and event venue preserved and operated by the heritage restoration organization Stadsherstel Amsterdam. This is the landmark that, on a night of countless fires and fireworks, would ignite an international controversy. The fire started approximately 45 minutes after midnight, just as emergency services in Amsterdam received the first reports of a fire at the Vondelkerk. When firefighters arrived on the scene, the flames were already engulfing the roof. Strong gusts of wind sent a huge shower of sparks flying eastwards, and the height of the church's tower made it very difficult to extinguish the fire from the start. So after it became clear that the Vondelkerk couldn't be saved, the priority shifted to securing the area by evacuating nearby homes and cutting power to prevent further danger and to protect the surrounding neighborhood from the spreading fire and potential collapse. The wooden roof and the spire of the tower collapsed roughly a couple of hours later, leaving only the outer walls standing. Approximately 90 homes in the vicinity were evacuated, and nearby residents were taken to a temporary shelter at a local community center. No lives were lost in the incident, and the fire was brought under control by 11 a.m. But the fight over how it burned and who to blame was yet to be extinguished. Before we proceed to talk about such a sensitive topic, I need to emphasize that this segment onwards is intended to examine a phenomenon of how a tragedy, in this volatile context, can be weaponized to seed a specific narrative. My role here is not to judge which is which, and my objective is not to defend any specific group or to blame another, but rather to lay out how disinformation spreads, who pushes it, how they do it, and what the consequences are for public discourse, because understanding how it works is a must-have knowledge for all of us in this age of disinformation. Our examination begins with the documented events from that night where, according to the Netherlands Institute for Public Safety, the fire department recorded a total of 4,286 incidents across the country on the New Year's Eve. The head of the Dutch police union, Nina Kooijman, described the situation as an unprecedented amount of violence against police, violence she herself experienced, being pelted 3 times with fireworks and other explosives during her duty in Amsterdam. In other cities such as Breda, Utrecht, Nijmegen, and Rotterdam, similar attacks on emergency officers were also reported, and about 250 people have been arrested for violence or vandalism on New Year's Eve across the country. National Police Chief Yanni Knowles stated on TV a few days later that the coordinated nature of these attacks indicated the involvement of a criminal network, and that officials aren't only looking for the culprits themselves, but also those who were involved in the background. Despite authorities pointing to domestic criminality with no specific mention of which groups orchestrated these attacks, and the fact that the official investigation is still underway, the dominant online narrative had already preempted the investigation with a one-sided verdict. According to an analysis by the Justice for Prosperity, which is a non-governmental organization that investigates anti-democratic actors, they found that within 48 hours of the Vondelkerk fire, 20% of all posts on X linked the tragedy to a terrorist act by Muslims. And this narrative dominated the most viewed content, making up 7 of the top 10 posts. A mix of Dutch and foreign accounts began seeding the idea of a terrorist attack within the first hour using omvolking, which is a conspiratorial hashtag associated with population replacement theory in Dutch discourse. This term was born from societal anxieties about migration and cultural change that have been growing in the Netherlands in recent years, and its underlying ideas have increasingly appeared in mainstream political debate, where migration is often framed as a crisis to justify stricter asylum and immigration policies. These concerns exist in large part because of persistent challenges to social integration, where a sense of cultural distance is felt both by newcomers and the native Dutch population. To make matters worse, the Netherlands has a shortage of over 400,000 homes, and this scarcity became the primary driver behind market dynamics that caused regular family house prices to rise by roughly 8.6% in 2025, forcing buyers to pay over €38,000 more on average than those who bought a year prior. It's one of the main reasons why some Dutch are angry about the migration policy. It has become difficult for a younger generation to find an affordable place to live because, according to NVM housing program manager Gerco Vandenberg, between 50 and 75% of residents in some neighborhoods in cities like Eindhoven are expats. For a Dutch person or family searching for a house in that area, the competition can be fierce, especially because many of these foreign workers benefit from a Dutch taxation law called the 30% ruling. This policy allows them to receive 30% of their salary tax-free for their first 5 years in the country. And in 2024 alone, roughly 92,000 people used this benefit, saving an average of €12,000 per year, which cost the government over €1 billion in foregone tax revenue each year. From the perspective of a Dutch buyer, they are competing for a scarce home against someone who, by law, has a notable financial advantage and on average is able to pay more. While at the same time, Dutch governments struggled to meet the target to build 100,000 new homes a year to address the shortage. This concern is intertwined with a deeper cultural question about what it means to be Dutch. That's why omvolking could be weaponized so effectively to shape the social media discourse. Throughout the morning, over 200 posts solidified the link between the Vondelkerk fire and an anti-Christian terror attack, that this was part of a Europe-wide pattern of Muslims burning all our churches, which was a conspiratorial narrative built by referencing unrelated incidents in other countries. The speculative snowball became a full-scale avalanche around noon when British influencer Tommy Robinson spoke of invader gangs burning down an iconic European church. This single post alone was viewed over 1 million times. And 2 hours later, Dutch activist Eva Vlardingerbroek doubled down on the narrative as she labeled the fire an act of war perpetrated, as she claimed, by youth gangs that were 99.9% Moroccans. She also argued the fact that authorities and residents weren't calling it a terrorist attack wasn't proof it wasn't one. It was proof of intentional blindness by champagne socialists who refused to see the truth. Her video as well was viewed 1.2 million times within a week. This narrative was then picked up by several accounts and channels that the Justice for Prosperity identifies as part of pro-Kremlin disinformation networks, which, as noted by the group, have a documented history of exploiting Dutch social unrest, including the violent protest in Malieveld in September 2025. These findings resonated with a documented foreign influence strategy in reports like the Kremlin's Trojan Horses 3.0 by the Atlantic Council in 2018, where they analyzed the Kremlin's objective to capitalize on social divides and cultivate political allies to undermine democratic cohesion in major European countries like Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden, following successful installments on Russian influence in France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom. One often cited example of this strategy is the influence of Russian-aligned disinformation during the 2016 Dutch referendum on the Ukraine-EU Association Agreement, where researchers identified the presence of coordinated efforts to shape online discourse around the vote. Given these well-known tactics, an event like the Vondelkerk fire, with its potent mix of cultural symbolism and a lack of official clarity, presented a perfect opportunity for influence actors to exploit uncertainties which could eventually distract the public focus by turning citizens against each other. Such potential outcomes closely mirror the strategic objectives outlined in the aforementioned reports. The tragic irony, as Justice for Prosperity noted, lies in the disproportionate scale of events. Because on that night, over 15,000 incidents were recorded by the police, and the Dutch fire brigades were called out more than 4,200 times. In at least 200 cases, it was for a building fire, and at least 300 cases for car fires. Yet, it took only one to ignite this particular blaze of hatred. No one can deny that migrants sometimes cause chaos and public nuisance in the Netherlands and in some other European countries. We saw it again very recently with unrest breaking out in The Hague and other cities after Morocco lost the Africa Cup of Nations final against Senegal on January 19th. Pretending these incidents don't happen isn't wise either, because it did happen, and it was unacceptable. And to me, it was kinda ironic because the chaos happened in a country that has nothing to do with the match itself. But acknowledging that reality doesn't mean we get to throw cause and effect out the window. The unrest after Morocco's loss happened in the open and people recorded it. Police intervened and there were witnesses and arrests, so there was little room to guess what happened or who was involved. That matters, because none of that existed in the Vondelkerk fire, at least not one that could turn speculation into evidence. One incident had a clear chain of events, the other doesn't. And conflating the two is where wild accusations take over. The fire happened during a night when the Netherlands was already under extreme strain, where Amsterdam and other cities experienced a level of chaos that authorities themselves have struggled to control. Fireworks, alcohol, crowd density, last chance mentality, and limited enforcement, everything combined into a familiar annual mess. In fact, Amsterdam's municipality had already banned the use of consumer fireworks back in 2021 because controlling it had become nearly impossible, and the risks were escalating every year. Despite that, fireworks continued to be used, often illegally and often recklessly. So in April 2025, the Dutch government has approved a nationwide ban on consumer fireworks to be prohibited starting January 1st of this year. This regulation was intended to be the cure for what Nijmegen's mayor called a Dutch disease, referring to annual New Year's Eve frenzy causing hundreds of injuries and millions in damage, the true scale of which could only be seen from footage taken in the streets.
What the fuck? Holy fuck!
Now, by the time this video is published, the investigation into the fire is still underway and the cause is still unknown. Authorities have stated that stray fireworks are a scenario being seriously investigated. In fact, there's a still image from a video showing how close fireworks were to the church. But this post has barely 2,500 views after 2 weeks because everyone was busy looking for a scapegoat instead of looking for potential key evidence. The uploader also stated that the full video is with the police, and he believed that it wasn't intentional at all. And it's normal if some people may doubt how a firework could cause a major fire in such a structure. But the fact that this post didn't get enough traction basically shows how our information systems these days are built to spread the story that sells, without taking a look at the possible evidence that may complicate the whole narrative. We'll need to wait for the official report to know what caused the fire, that's for sure. Until then, possible key evidence is being drowned out by online narratives that reward the story people want to hear over the story behind the tragedy. What's undeniably clear, however, is that the Netherlands has a massive fireworks problem, and I believe anyone living in the Netherlands knows it all too well. This problem was called a Dutch disease by Nijmegen's mayor Hubert Bruhl, whose city had banned fireworks, but couldn't keep them out. What was once a tradition has become something dangerous and has lately become a public health crisis, since it caused hundreds of injuries, millions of euros in property damage, cost people their eyesight, their other body parts, and on this New Year's Eve alone, a 17-year-old boy and a 38-year-old man lost their lives by fireworks. In the weeks leading up to New Year's Eve, plastic surgeons around the country reported that 10 children had already lost hands or fingers due to fireworks accidents. And after the New Year's Eve, they treated 93 serious cases compared to last year's total of 62, with at least 12 people losing a hand. The Rotterdam Eye Hospital also saw a surprising number of minors with eye injuries from fireworks, where 14 injured people have been admitted so far. And unlike in previous years, 85% of the victims are minors. A total of 406 police officers and 122 other emergency responders were also victims of violence, according to the Dutch police, with emergency personnel sometimes lured into ambushes and fired upon with heavy fireworks assembled like a machine gun. Local bans like the one in Amsterdam made little to no difference to the whole situation, and those firework-free zones had barely changed anything. Cities could ban the act of lighting fireworks, but they had no power to ban their sale, because this power was held exclusively by the national government. And with the nationwide ban on consumer fireworks scheduled for this year, there was a rush to buy fireworks in the weeks leading up to New Year's Eve, as people wanted that one final blast before it became illegal. The Dutch Pyrotechnics Association reported that people bought approximately 129 million euros worth of fireworks in 2025, which was a new record compared to 118 million euros worth of fireworks from the previous year. A November survey published by nu.nl also showed that out of 324 responding municipalities, 105 of them had officially stated they were anticipating more fireworks and greater nuisance. One of these municipalities put it bluntly by stating, "We expect some residents will want to seize this opportunity to go all out, which could lead to more reports of nuisance, damage, or dangerous situations." With all these predictions in November, the police had warned more than a month in advance of a turbulent New Year's Eve. And in an effort to anticipate this, officers in many cities began having preemptive talks with known troublemakers, even sending formal warnings to their homes. Some municipalities like Arnhem and Nijmegen tried softer tactics like organizing soccer tournaments to divert youth energy. But despite these month-long preparations, the night of December 31st would become one of the most violent in recent Dutch history. The reality was worse than their worst predictions. The material damage was immense, and the attacks on emergency personnel were unprecedented. But in the end, we are left with two things that tell two very different stories. The first is a still image taken from a video. It shows fireworks exploding dangerously close to a historic church that has been deconsecrated, a scenario that police have confirmed is among the plausible causes under investigation, and it has been viewed 2,500 times with only 3 comments. The second is a story of an act of war, spread by influencers and foreign actors, with no evidence confirmed by officials so far, and those posts were viewed over 1 million times. The numbers tell us which one people chose to believe. And sometimes, the most telling evidence isn't what we see, but what we decide to look at instead. The real disease might not be in the fireworks, but in our appetite for a better story.